Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be checking out a video titled How I View the US After 12 Years Living Abroad. Should be a very potent video, and we're going to be getting right into that right now. So first of all, thank you for watching. Please do like and subscribe. That's all I ask. Well, no, I ask a lot more. Enjoy the video. I hope you enjoyed the video as well. That's what I really want you guys to do. Enjoy this video. But yeah, we're gonna be checking out this video. So thank you for watching. Link for the original video will be in the description of this video. So do check out the original video if necessary. So without further ado, let's get right into this video.
I've been living abroad for 12 years now, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk about how my opinions and how my views have changed on the US after living abroad for so long. I saw a TikTok asking other Americans that live abroad the same question, how their views have changed since they've moved abroad and how they view the US now. And I thought it'd be interesting to add this into my 12 Years Abroad series, so let's jump right in with number 12, which is freedom. We are jumping right into it with freedom. If you know anything about the US, then you know what I'm talking about. The US prides itself on its freedoms. I don't know how many times I was told growing up that America is the land of the free and the home of the brave, and I should be willing to die for that freedom.
Oh, Lord.
As you can imagine, I just kind of believed it because I didn't know better, and why would they lie about that? Well, I can tell you my opinion has definitely changed since traveling and living abroad. It turns out the US isn't even in the top 10 freest countries according to the Human Freedom Index.
Really?
It is in the top 20, ranked.
Ain't nobody told me that there was a human freedom index. Ain't nobody told me that. I know about the happiness report. Well, that's since I moved to Finland that I knew about the happiness report. So I guess a lot of things were just blind to me until I came to Europe. Amazing.
15, but the way the media and government talk about freedom in the US makes it sound like all other countries are imprisoning their people and forcing them to work, which is kind of ironic because the US actually ranks number 1 in incarcerated people. According to World Prison Brief, the United States leads the world in total number of people incarcerated, with more than 2 million prisoners nationwide. My views have definitely changed on the US being the freest country in the world. The US does have a lot of freedoms and has a strong judicial system, but so do other countries around the world. And the US is not ranked number 1. Moving on to number 11 on our list is something that many people argue about and often goes hand in hand with the idea of freedom, and that is gun ownership in the US. It is very interesting to talk with people who are not from the US and who haven't grown up with gun ownership being a common and real thing. Growing up in the US, it was normal to own guns, and many people I knew had guns. I remember my brother having a shotgun in his house, and I didn't think it was that strange or weird. But this isn't normal globally, and actually only 3 countries have constitutional rights to own a gun. While most countries allow gun ownership, they impose strict laws regulating which types of guns you can own and how they are stored. According to Insider, Americans own nearly half of all the civilian-owned guns in the world, and on a per capita basis, the US has far more guns than any other nation. With so many guns come mass shootings, which is a uniquely US thing. These attacks rarely occur in other countries, and the frequency and destruction caused by these attacks is heartbreaking. My views have changed a lot on gun ownership from this is normal to what is wrong with the US? Speaking of what is wrong with the US, next on our list at number 10, which ties back into the last 2 points, is national pride. Americans are extremely patriotic, and they believe that the US is the best country in the world, and you better not disagree with them because they might shoot you. Jokes aside, they are extremely patriotic because they've been lied to their whole lives. The US is a good country, but it is not the best country or worth chanting USA, USA, USA everywhere you go. Most Americans don't realize how bad they're getting screwed by the corporations in the government, and they truly believe that the US is number 1 in the world. It really depends on what you are ranking, but the US is usually in the middle or lower half of a top 20 list. From freedoms to quality of life to education, the US is ranked all over the place and rarely is number 1, except for prisoners, guns, military spending, GDP, and a few other things that aren't very flattering. It isn't until you move abroad and remove yourself from the media and forced lies that you start to realize the rest of the world isn't that bad, and some countries are even better than the US. In one way, many countries are better than the US is education. Number 9.
That is very true. This point right here There's nothing you can argue as an American. You can argue, well, I love my guns. Well, I love to chant America. Yeah, USA, USA. But this, you cannot argue this. You can probably say to yourself, well, we have some of the most renowned universities in the world. However, renowned doesn't mean shit because not everybody gets to go to a renowned university. It's the availability of the university that means something, right? And being able to actually achieve that. The universities are available in the United States. However, not everybody can go because it's so darn expensive. You know what I mean? So the free, tax-free, tax-paid, not really free education that you have in Europe is very good because guess what? You go there for free. Then when you're done, you get a job in IT. And then guess what? Punk ass, you're paying back for that with tax. So it's much easier. Right, I'd imagine, in my humble opinion. Let me know what y'all think.
According to results from the Program for International Student Assessment, the U.S. ranks 39th in math, 23rd in reading, and 25th in science out of 73 surveyed countries.
And that's just education.
This is low for a country that claims to be number one. After living abroad for some time, it is clear that the U.S. does not value public education, and universities are run like businesses. The cost of higher education is appalling compared to the rest of the world, and don't get me started on public schools. There are videos of teachers asking for school supplies, and Mr. Beast just did a video about helping students and teachers because the US government doesn't provide enough resources. The US government doesn't seem to care about education, and this means the general public also doesn't seem to care about education. Just search "Americans are idiots" and you will see how bad it is. Not to mention the dangers around teaching. After living abroad for a long time, it has become clear that education is not a high priority in the US, which is a shame because it is the best way for people to improve their lives and economic situation. Speaking of improving situations, we are about to hit number 8 on this list, but before I reveal that one, be sure to hit the like button because it really helps improve the situation of this video. Okay, let's jump back in with number 8, which is healthcare. I remember growing up that I never went to the doctor, and I never understood why. It was just my family didn't go to the doctor unless somebody was dying. I mean, literally, the one time I spent the night in the hospital, I was actually dying, and if I didn't have a surgery, I would have died. And I never really thought anything of it, it's just we didn't go to the doctor. Well, it turns out we didn't go because it costs a fortune just for a simple checkup. The US has state-of-the-art hospitals and medicine, but unless you are rich or have good insurance, good luck accessing it. The US spends more of its GDP on healthcare than any other high-income countries, yet ranks last in access to care, administrative efficiency, equality, and healthcare outcomes, according to the nonprofit Commonwealth Fund. I just typed into Google what countries have universal healthcare, and I realized it would be faster to look up which countries don't have.
Ain't that a shame? It's easier to look up what countries don't have, which means that probably 80% of the countries in the world has universal healthcare. Like, I really do, believe that I really do believe that universal healthcare is like a big plus, and it's something that should be considered. Even if it's not to the highest degree, at least have some sort of baseline to it. You know what I mean? Like severities. You know what I mean? Like there's a level of severity. So guess what? For surgeries, such and such and such and such, there's not, to bring a child in this world, it's not some sick. You get what I'm saying? But here we have the list. It's like, here are the 10 notable countries that are still without universal health care. United States, China, Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Nigeria, Egypt. Dude, these are not supposed to be... Okay, China, United States, they're in the same category, in my humble opinion, on a world stage. But Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Pakistan? Nah, you shouldn't be on the same list as those countries. That's what I think. Wait, hold on. Does Russia has? There's no way. That's bad.
Some of the countries that don't have universal health care include Pakistan, Yemen, Syria, and of course, the United States. Basically, the entire world is covered in some form by a government-backed program, but the US is the only high-income country that doesn't have adequate and affordable coverage. affordable being the key word in that last sentence.
Affordable.
There are people that pay thousands of dollars on medication and treatment each month in the US, but if they lived in almost any other country, it would be free or affordable. My views have changed a lot on healthcare in the United States since leaving. And it's one of those situations that could be solved if people were willing to, and if the corporations didn't make so much
Facts.
profit off of keeping the system the way it is. And it's such a shame because people are, suffering because of this system. And one of the ways it is
Obesity?
profitable is by treating obesity-related health issues, which brings us to number 7 on our list, food. In the TikTok video I was watching about Americans and how their views had changed after living abroad, many of them were complaining about gaining weight or getting sick when they moved back to the United States because of the food. The food industry in the US is basically producing poison. The FDA allows food and packaging companies to use harmful chemicals when handling and processing food. These chemicals end up in the food, which can cause cancers and other health problems. Again, growing up in the US, eating Pop-Tarts for breakfast seemed like a normal thing to do. Little Debbie snacks and mac and cheese with hot dogs was a balanced diet, all washed down with Coca-Cola. It wasn't until I moved that I realized
It's literally real life meals for real. That's literally real life meal. The moment he said Coca-Cola, I was like, okay, stop now. Because he was already speaking to me with the mac and cheese and the hot dogs. Because like I used to like literally sometimes eat for dinner hot dogs, like about 2-3 hot dogs and a damn large ass Coke from a freaking store called the Circle K. You guys can do research on that, why I mentioned Circle K. Because if you do research on that, you'll find out that this bottle that I'm drinking is water, and it has about 800 milliliters of water. The kind of styrofoam thingy that you would get from a Circle K is like probably about 1.5 times that size that I just showed you, the 800 milliliters. So yeah, you'd be taking in so much sodas, and like you could refill it. You could leave and refill. Like, dude, it's insane.
that some of the obesity problems in the US are actually food problems.
Yes.
It is easy to blame and say it is an individual's problem, which is part of the problem. But also a lot of the issues are related to the food industry and access to healthy foods. But changing the laws are much harder and not as profitable as changing people's attitude towards obesity. Now if somebody says he, she, they are fat or unhealthy, they will get canceled for body shaming. So obviously my views have changed a lot in relationship to healthcare and food in the United States. Which brings us nicely to our next point on the list, woke culture. A quote that always makes me laugh is, if you're not a liberal when you're 25, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative by the time you're 35, you have no brain. The cultural war that is raging right now in the US is insane, like literally insane. And it's all a distraction to keep people from enacting any real change in the government or society. If all sides are fighting with each other and themselves, the people in power and the corporations can pass legislation that hurts both sides and makes them more profit. The last thing they want is for all sides to unite under their common struggle and oust the people currently in power.
Yeah, I don't really like talking about all of these type of stuff in a sense, like in terms of the divisions type of stuff, but it's real life that I genuinely believe it, because when you wake up in the morning, don't you see there is more methods of division? How many types of Christianity do you have? Too many. How many types of genders now you do have? A lot more. Men are against women. Women are against men. Teams in sports, what do you see? They compete against each other. These are all distractions, because if we're focused on my side and you have your side, we're always going to be at odds. And if we're at odds, we won't be focused on what's going on behind us, because we're so focused on the fact that your punk ass is not agreeing with me. So yeah, all these distractions, there's so many in this world, right? Sports and these shows used to be a thing, of the past, where when something bad happens, it would be like a distraction to, refresh the people's mind. And we have so many right now, so many forms of distraction.
The craziest thing is that when you are removed from it and you're living abroad, you can just see how crazy and insane it is and how damaging it is to society. While Americans are fighting about what a woman is, or if the celebrity has used the correct pronoun, the rest of the world knows what a woman is and isn't wasting time on things that don't make their country or economy stronger. While American students are in their gender study classes wondering if they are a man, woman, or other, Chinese and Indian students are in their math and physics classes gaining real knowledge that might lead to the next breakthrough in science or technology. Learning about someone's gender isn't a real skill and won't create a breakthrough that could revolutionize any industry. It isn't even medical science. At best, we might learn about groupthink when people study this time period in the future. But in its current form, woke culture and the backlash to it is destroying society.
It is.
Societies only exist when people are willing to share the same goal and work towards that goal together. Currently, both sides are unwilling to find common ground, and they're literally tearing each other apart. They're tearing the society apart, and the people in power absolutely love it. My views have changed a lot on this after traveling to many countries because these types of debates aren't even considered in most places. Most people around the world are too concerned about feeding their families and improving their lives to even think about pronouns. But enough about all that. We've made it to number 5 on the list, and if you are still here, then you probably agree with me on many of these points. You probably also know that YouTube will not push this video to anyone, so be sure to like and share it with your friends to help others understand how the US looks from abroad. Next up on this list is another thing that is destroying the United States from the inside, and it's this consumerism, flex culture, celebrity worship. I'm sure there's a term for this, but I don't actually know what it is.
Idolize?
It's basically the worship or the love of money. A Harris poll of 3,000 children between the age of 8 to 12 revealed that YouTuber was the first choice of 29% of them. Don't get me wrong, I would love to make a full-time income on YouTube, but I don't think that young people...
Nah, I'm a YouTuber and I cannot tell you to do this. I would not tell you to do this. And what's ironic is there's probably tens of thousands of YouTubers. Do you want to know why I'm on YouTube? Well, because I moved to Europe. That's the reason why I started making videos about Europe, because I had a dream to learn about Europe because that's where I would be living. So maybe there are so many reactors out there, and I'm not throwing shots at anyone, but I'm actually the reactor or a reactor who actually is reacting because of a change in his life. I'm not doing this because I saw somebody did it. In fact, I never knew about this. This started with the Eurovision. It started with the Eurovision. That's how I started making this videos regarding this channel. It started with the Eurovision. That was the year I found out, okay, there's a high chance you're going to be moving to Europe. Then I started making videos about Finland, the country that I would be moving to, because I was learning about Finland. Then I started with Germany and I started going all about Europe. And then the comparison. That's how I got here. So my journey has been a genuine journey, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, because before I moved to Europe, I would have went to college. You know, I would have went to Coastal Carolina. You can research what university that is. That's a university. Or I would have went to the university in Tampa, which my sister wanted me to go to. But the point is, I would have went to university and studied to be a computer engineer. That's literally what I would have done. And even here in Finland, it is something that I am looking into. You know, it's much cheaper here. It's about $8,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken, in certain universities. So it's something that I'm looking into to continue my path. So yeah, as a kid, I would not recommend this. There's much better out there, but if you do have a genuine reason to do this, like you love tech, you love this, and you want to share it with the world, go ahead. But don't just do it because somebody else does it. It's not going to be beneficial to you. I have a drive with this because I feel passion, you know, doing this because it's something that I genuinely collided in. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's not a lie what he's saying.
Revealed that YouTuber was the first choice of 29% of them. Don't get me wrong, I would love to make a full-time income on YouTube, but I don't think that young people should be inspiring to be social media stars. If the US culture continues to inspire children to become celebrities and OnlyFans stars, the US will lose its competitive advantage in science and technology. When I was growing up, children wanted to be doctors, astronauts, teachers, and scientists. Sure, there were some kids that wanted to be WWE stars or actors, but they were usually outliers and not the norm. Nowadays, based on the poll,
they're usually genuine, meaning they'll never actually truly give up on that dream. They're not doing it because of doing it. They're doing it because they really have a drive towards that. So I totally agree with him, because a lot of these people, they're not doing it because it's real. They're doing it because, oh yeah, I see you do it, I do it too.
Children want to be YouTube stars and they look up to Mr. Beast. I get the appeal of money and fame, but it is a slippery slope. If children look up to YouTubers, celebrities, and hustle culture promoters, and not doctors or scientists, I feel the future is doomed. The internet has created a lot of opportunities for new work and ways of making money, but very few content creators are curing cancer or creating the next tech revolution. If all the kids want to be YouTubers, who is going to build the future? Speaking of building the future, we all have to work, which brings us to our next point. The US mistreats employees. More than 120 countries around the world provide paid maternity leave and health benefits by law, including most industrialized nations except Australia, New Zealand, and the United States, according to reports from the International Labor Office. Just think about that for a second. Mothers who have just given birth are not given paid maternity leave by US law. Because there are no laws on the books, it is up to employers to decide how much time and money new mothers are given. This is supposed to be a happy moment in a couple's life, but most parents miss out on important bonding because they have to go back to work. You'll be lucky to get 3 or 4 weeks off, and even luckier if it's paid. If you're commenting about the Family and Medical Leave Act of 1993 right now, I get it, there are some protections, but that really only covers unpaid leave. With the average family in debt and less than $6,000 in their bank accounts, it is hard to take 12 weeks unpaid leave. Maternity leave is just one example of how US employees are getting hurt. Another good example is employment at will contracts, which only benefit the employer. Because many workplaces don't offer full-time contracts with salaries and benefits, employees are constantly anxious about their jobs. There is little job security with employment at will contracts, which pressures workers to work harder and longer because they are worried about losing their job.
Exactly.
These types of contracts allow managers to create schedules that keep employees from reaching full-time hours, which means companies don't have to pay for insurance or other benefits that full-time employees should receive. Employers have even gone farther by creating gig work and refusing to classify workers as employees, reducing their tax, insurance, and benefit obligations. They create campaigns claiming that it is good for employees and that it provides more flexibility, but in reality, it only burdens workers. People don't want to feel insecure about their livelihoods. Reports and studies show that people are more productive and happier when they feel secure in their workplace. Employment isn't always fair and balanced in the United States, and 2 things really jump out to me when talking about this. First, Americans have been trained to hate unions. It is surprising just how much effort has gone into breaking or stopping unions. This is a video in itself, but history has shown that workers have benefited the most when strong labor unions force business owners to increase wages and provide more benefits.
That's right.
But because this history is not taught in schools, call back to my previous point, workers believe unions cost them money and don't help their employment situation. The second thing I've noticed is that people define themselves by their work. They are what they do. In other countries, people are more concerned about their family relations or hobbies, but in the US, your job is who you are and everything else is secondary. Because success is defined by money and not happiness or relationships, people in the US are obsessed with their careers. This creates a culture of unfulfilled and unhappy people because they care so much about their work, but their employer doesn't care about them. I'm not saying it's perfect around the world, but there does seem to be a hyper focus on productivity and self-worth through work within the United States, which should be changed to create a better working environment for US workers. We are about to make it into the top 3 ways my views have changed on the US, but before we make it to number 1, be sure to hit the like button because I'm afraid that YouTube will suppress this video. YouTube doesn't always push videos that tell the truth, so hit that like button or share it with a friend because they might also like the video. Moving on to number 3, transportation.
Ooh.
This one might seem strange at first, but let me explain. If you live in the United States and you want to get around, you have to own a car. Period.
That is true.
Most cities do not have adequate public transportation or even good bike lanes. The US is car dominant, and without a car, you will struggle to do basic tasks. Things have changed in the last 12 years with ride-sharing apps and food delivery apps, but it is still really difficult to get around in the United States if you don't own a car. Growing up in the US, that seemed normal because it is normal for the US, but outside of the US, many countries have decent public transportation. Countries like the Netherlands, Sweden, and Denmark all have designed cities to incorporate biking, and many people bike to work. Many countries in Asia, like Japan, Korea, and China, have subways and high-speed trains connecting cities and areas, which makes it convenient to get around. With all the money the US government spends on the military and subsidies, it could have redesigned many of the cities to include bike lanes and subway systems. When people feel safe on the roads and the cities encourage biking, people will bike. There are enough examples of cities redesigning their downtown areas and encouraging biking to support the investment. But
What's ironic is my sister lives in New York, and she's giving me word that they're actually somehow doing something of the sort like that regarding Manhattan. So I really don't know if it's going to really get to that point. But New York has always been the scope, of, in my humble opinion, what the rest of the United States should embrace and copy in terms of transportation and moving around via a bike or, your legs, right? It's always been the scope in my eyes. So let's see what happens. Maybe something might come out of it. So let's see what happens.
despite these examples, nothing seems to change. Bus routes, subways, trains, and bike lanes are not developed despite evidence that it improves people's lives and commutes. If the US took a little bit of their military spending and diverted it back into infrastructure, they could create more jobs in better cities. My opinions on public transportation have changed a lot after living and traveling in cities that have good public transportation. Speaking of government spending, number 2 on our list is the US government, and there are 2 things I want to talk about. Let's first talk about the military. The US doesn't need to police the world. By taking on this role, it has allowed other nations to expect and rely on US military support, but that has weakened both the US and reliant nations. It has weakened reliant nations because they spend less money on their own militaries, and it has weakened the US because the US spends too much money on the US military.
Wow.
If the US spent 10 or 20% less on the military each year and diverted it back into building the US, it would be a stronger nation in terms of domestic strength. The US would have better healthcare, schools, infrastructure, and public services. But that will never happen because the US government is fractured and dysfunctional, which brings us to the second point that I want to address. The 2 parties are not working to benefit the people, and because of this, people are voting more and more extreme. The US government allows lobbies to push specific agendas that don't benefit the people, and because of this, the people vote for anyone that promises change. Right or left, it doesn't matter because both sides are becoming more and more unhinged. The 2 sides are no longer working together, and the lobbies are funding special projects that only benefit the corporations. The politicians are corrupt and always have been, but now it seems like there is less cooperation between the 2 sides, and this is all spurred on by the mainstream media, which brings us to our final point. But before I talk about the mainstream media, be sure to hit that like button because YouTube is part of the problem and they will probably suppress this video. Okay, let's talk about the US media. It's all fake news. I don't
This man is not scared.
support Trump or his policies, but I totally understand him and why people voted for him. He coined the term fake news, but he's not wrong. You can't even really call it news anymore, and it's bad on both sides. In the past, we used to have tabloids in the supermarkets at the checkouts, and they would always have the most ridiculous headlines like, "A woman gives birth to alien and claims the father is Joe Biden. We have the exclusive interview, you won't believe what she said." We all knew it was fake, but it was kind of fun to read. Nowadays, this is every news headline. Because the news is a business and needs to make money, they will print the most outrageous headlines to get more views and clicks. Mix the mainstream media in with social media and actual fake news by your favorite YouTuber, and you create a nation of misinformed people. If you can't distinguish between lies and truth, then you will forever be lost.
I mean, he's not lying. He's definitely not lying.
And I feel many people in the United States right now are lost. They are fighting over lies, and because they want something to be true, they are willing to believe lies. This goes for both sides. Doesn't matter which opinion you hold about a topic, someone is creating content to push you farther down the rabbit hole. As long as there's money to be made off of content, then Fox and CNN and YouTube and TikTok and Facebook and Twitter, all of the social media platforms will continue to push this content out regardless of the truth. This is not just a US problem, but because most of the mainstream media is US based or US centric, and because most of the popular apps are US based, it is a major problem for the US. My opinion on news and popular apps have changed a lot after moving abroad, and I think this problem will continue until better regulations are implemented. So there you have it, 12 ways my opinions have changed about the US
right, though.
after living abroad
He's
for
right.
12 years. If you want to know where I've been living this whole time and why, click here. And if you want to
The sad part about all of this is I cannot even disagree with what he has said throughout the entire video. There's nothing that I can be like, you're lying. That's totally false. I can't. There's nothing. So it was a solid video, and these were very good points. The point regarding the military, spending so much in the comparison of even China and the rest of the strong houses in Europe, tallied together, were still less than what the United States single-handedly spends. So maybe a 10-20% less, and that could go to a lot of other areas. And the United States could potentially be the greatest country in the world if that was the case. But yeah, good video. But yeah, link for the original video in the description. Thank you for watching. I'm out of here. Peace.